The thing is, I did not throw the ring away because I hated him. 2 cameras, 1 velvet box, and of course everyone was watching me pretend that tradition felt like honor. I thought I was refusing to be made small. Then Elias reached into the trash, picked up his grandmother's ring, and cancelled the reception before our first dance. My name is Maya Holm. I was 32, and I worked as a luxury bridal stylist at an upscale wedding atelier where women paid us to make love look expensive. The thing is, I believed I understood value better than most people because I saw what happened when a bride stepped into the wrong dress and suddenly looked like a guest in her own life. 2 mirrors, 1 velvet stool. No crime in wanting the room to prove you mattered. That evening, the atelier smelled of steamed satin, glass cleaner, and the almond hand cream my manager kept by the register. I stood between 2 tall mirrors, adjusting a cathedral veil on a bride who kept asking whether the lace looked rich enough for a vineyard ceremony. I told her it looked intentional. Brides liked that word. Intentional made price sound like destiny. After closing, Elias came in carrying takeaway coffee and the garment bags I had forgotten in the stockroom. My groom, 4 years together, engaged 11 months, and still he came after late fittings without making me ask. He had always been useful in a quiet way. He sat on the atelier floor after my longest shifts and helped me wrap sample veils in tissue paper, even though tulle made him sneeze. Back then, that kind of patience felt rare. That night, he also carried a small antique velvet box. He said Rana wanted me to see it before the wedding week. His grandmother's ring. Not the main ring, he said quickly, as if he had already heard the concern forming in me. The private civil signing would happen after the ceremony and before the reception. Rana hoped I might wear it there. Inside was old gold, modest stones, worn edges. It looked soft, tired, and smaller than the diamond sample bands under our glass counter. Of course I smiled. I said it was beautiful. Elias watched my face anyway. He asked softly what changed when I saw it. What he meant was that he wanted me to be honest before the ring became a wound. What I heard was that I was already being measured for gratitude. I told him nothing changed. I said I was touched. I said family history was important. My phone buzzed on the fitting stool. Bianca had seen the photo I sent her before I knew I needed to hide it. She wrote that she hoped it was not the main ring, because I deserved diamonds, not history homework. I turned the phone down too late. Elias looked at the velvet box, then at the diamond tray beside it. He did not say anything. That was Elias. He believed meaning could stand by itself if everyone stayed kind enough. I closed the box and placed it beside the diamond samples. It looked smaller there. The bridal expo took place in a hotel ballroom where the carpet had gold vines on it, and every booth smelled like perfume, champagne, or money pretending to be taste. The thing is, I knew these rooms. I knew which florist overcharged because her vases photographed well. I knew which planner smiled at brides and studied their shoes before speaking. I knew how quickly a woman could be ranked by the ring on her hand. 2 vendor badges, 1 diamond case. No reason to feel defensive before anyone said a word. Bianca came with me because she said my final accessory choices needed a second pair of eyes and a better phone camera. She wore a cream suit and kept filming tiny clips of ribbon walls, champagne towers, and invitation samples, always careful to keep herself in the reflection. Bianca was my maid of honor, but she was also an influencer who treated every wedding as a brand opportunity. She loved me, in her way. She also loved anything that made the day look expensive enough to borrow. We stopped at Dorian Cross's jewellery booth because the lighting there was unfair. Soft white lamps, black velvet pads, diamond bands arranged like they had been born knowing their own worth. Dorian recognized me from the atelier. He said Maya Holm had the kind of taste most brides hired people to fake. He said it in front of 2 vendors, and one of them turned to look at me again. That mattered. Of course it did. Dorian was 38, with dark hair, clean cuffs, and a voice that made every compliment sound like professional analysis. He lifted a diamond band from the case and placed it on a velvet pad under the light. He said a woman like me should never wear something people had to explain. Bianca laughed. She said antique rings were romantic only when they were large enough to look intentional. I said Elias's grandmother's ring had meaning. The defense came out thin, like tissue paper pulled too hard. Dorian smiled without touching the ring. He said some families called anything sentimental when they could not afford sparkle. That should have been the end of the conversation. A clean little insult, easy to reject. Instead, I looked at the diamond band and imagined it in wedding photos. My hand near the bouquet, my hand on Elias's shoulder, my hand in every close-up, saying I had been chosen at the right price. Elias arrived then with a folder of venue details under one arm. He had come to bring updated seating notes because the venue had moved 2 tables near the fire exit. He heard enough. I knew he heard because his eyes moved from Dorian's diamond band to the antique ring photo still open on Bianca's phone. He did not confront Dorian. That was the first real crack for me, though of course I called it something cleaner. Restraint. Family dignity. Elias's endless belief that silence made things noble. Dorian shook his hand and said the venue file looked serious. Elias smiled politely. He said planning made the day easier for everyone. Dorian said some things should not be made easy. They should be made unforgettable. Bianca looked at me like the room had just handed her a caption. On the way home, Elias drove with both hands on the wheel. The folder sat between us on the console. I kept seeing Dorian's diamond band every time a streetlight moved over my engagement ring. At home, the apartment smelled like laundry detergent and the cardamom biscuits Rana had sent over that morning. She had taught me to make them the first winter Elias and I dated. Every woman entering the family needed one recipe no one could take from her, she had said, pressing dough into my palm like it was a blessing. Back then, I had loved that. Now the smell felt like another expectation. Elias placed the venue folder on the kitchen table and asked about the expo. Specific. Factual. No accusation. He said he heard Dorian call the ring small, and he saw me smile. Then he asked what happened there. What he meant was that something had hurt him before the wedding had even begun. What I heard was that he wanted me to defend his family before defending myself. I told him Dorian was rude, but I also said he had a point about photos. I said Elias had let another man make me look cheap in public. I said he stood there with a folder while someone laughed at what I was supposed to wear. Elias took one breath. He said he thought defending his grandmother's ring like a price tag would cheapen it more. That sentence annoyed me because it sounded beautiful and solved nothing. I told him that was convenient for a man who never had to wear it. I said he could talk about meaning because the small gold thing would be on my hand, in my photos, beside my dress, under everyone's eyes. His hand moved once toward mine, then stopped before touching me. That stop became the consequence. He did not reach again that night. Later, in the bridesmaid chat, Bianca posted a blurred photo of Dorian's diamond band and wrote that some men understood visual standards without needing a family meeting. Nora did not react. Nora always reacted, even if only with a heart or a dress emoji. This time the little row under the message stayed empty, where her name should have been. Samira called me the next morning. Elias's sister never wasted words. She asked if I understood what Rana's ring meant. I said of course I did. I said everyone was making me sound shallow because I cared about how things would look. Samira said caring about how things looked was not the problem. She said calling a family object embarrassing was another thing. I told her I had not called it embarrassing. There was a pause long enough for me to hear her son talking in the background, asking for cereal. Then Samira said I should be careful not to make Elias choose between protecting me and protecting his grandmother. That annoyed me more than Dorian's insult had. It made the ring sound like a living person in the room. I ended the call politely. Then I messaged Dorian privately and asked if the diamond band came in a slimmer profile because I was only researching photo balance. Researching. That was the word I used. The thing is, research sounds clean. It makes hunger wear glasses. Dorian replied within 4 minutes. He said he knew I had better taste than to let tradition drown a silhouette. Then he sent 3 more photos. In each one, the diamonds caught light, like they had something to prove. I saved one into my wedding folder, right beside the picture of Rana's heirloom ring. That was the first active choice, but I still called it comparison. The ceremony looked perfect from the outside. White roses along the aisle, candles in tall glass cylinders, champagne trays waiting near the ballroom doors. The air smelled of buttercream, cut stems and the cold metal of the floral arch where the staff had attached too many roses because Bianca said abundance read better on camera. The thing is, the day had finally become the room I knew how to control. 2 cameras, 1 white bouquet, no room for a small ring. The civil signing was scheduled privately after photos and before the first dance. That was the plan. The legal part would be quiet. The reception would be bright. Elias said he liked that order because the promise would happen before the performance. I told him that sounded sweet. What I meant was that nobody would photograph the heirloom ring too closely. After the ceremony, guests moved into the ballroom with soft voices and full glasses. Rana sat near the front table in a dove-grey dress, her white hair pinned carefully, her hands folded over a small lace handbag. She looked tired but alert. Samira hovered near her, watching the room in that protective way she had, like every corner might insult her family if left alone. Dorian was there as a vendor guest. He had helped the venue source a jewellery display table for the styling shots, or that was the official version. He stood near it with a glass of water, not champagne, because men like Dorian liked looking controlled. Bianca came to my side while the photographer adjusted his lens near the gift table. She whispered that the lighting was harsh, and this was not the moment for tiny old gold. I told her not to start. Of course, I had already started inside myself. Rana called Elias over. She handed him the antique velvet box with both hands. Her fingers stayed on it for 1 second too long before she let go. Elias looked at her like she had given him something heavier than jewellery. He brought it to me near the gift table, quietly proud. Not loud proud. Elias never knew how to make a room turn toward him. He only stood close and expected the right thing to be understood. A few guests leaned closer. They thought they were about to witness a tender family moment. The photographer lifted his camera. Bianca shifted beside me, making space for a better angle. Dorian looked at the box, then at me. I opened it. Under the ballroom lights, the ring looked smaller than it had in the atelier. Old gold, soft stones, worn places where Rana's life had touched it for decades. It did not sparkle. It held light the way old things hold weather, quietly and without asking. I laughed, too sharp, too fast. Someone near the gift table stopped speaking. I said I deserved diamonds, not this junk. The ring stayed in the box for 1 more second. That second was almost kind. It gave me time to hear myself and choose a different sentence. Elias asked quietly if we could step away. Quiet debrief. No raised voice. The quiet was the point. What he meant was that he was trying to save me from the room. What I heard was that he wanted to move my humiliation somewhere smaller so his family could keep theirs clean. I lifted the ring where people could see it. The stones gave almost nothing back. Samira stepped forward. She said not to do this in front of Rana. Her voice was low, but it carried because the people near us had stopped pretending not to listen. I said tradition was not an excuse to make a bride look cheap. Bianca's hand touched my wrist, light and quick. For once, it did not feel like encouragement. It felt like a warning that had arrived late. I did not take it. The trash bins sat beside the floral arch, half hidden under a cream cloth, close to the gift table where guests had placed white envelopes and ribboned boxes. I moved toward it with the ring between my fingers. The room did not move fast enough to stop me. I dropped it. The sound was small. a tiny tap inside the bin, almost swallowed by flowers, fabric, and the low hum of the air system. Too small for what it did, too small for Rana's open hand, still shaped as if the velvet box were resting there, too small for Elias's face when he looked at the bin before he looked at me. The change moved person by person. Nora lowered her glass. Layla's phone dipped, but not before the red recording light caught the edge of my hand. Samira put one hand on Rana's shoulder. Bianca's smile disappeared like someone had cut the thread holding it up. Dorian looked down at his drink, suddenly interested in the rim. Elias did not shout. He did not grab my arm. He did not call me cruel. He knelt. His wedding suit pulled tight across his shoulders as he lowered himself beside the trash bin. He took a folded napkin from the gift table and reached in carefully, moving aside a crumpled ribbon and 2 used cocktail sticks. Nobody spoke. Even the photographer lowered his camera a few inches. Elias lifted the ring out with the napkin. He held it like it was injured. For 1 second the door opened. Not guilt. Not yet. Something cleaner and harder. The ring was not small because Elias valued me less. It was small because it had survived more than I understood. It had crossed apartments, years, illness, widowhood, and all the tight places families pass through without becoming stories people applaud. It had been on Rana's hand before I knew what a diamond meant. It had waited inside a velvet box to make room for me, not to reduce me. Rana still had not moved. Her face did not accuse me. That was worse. Her face had gone somewhere private. Then I closed the door. I told myself Elias was staging pain. I told myself he knew kneeling would make me look cruel and him look noble. I told myself families used old objects to trap new women inside old rules. Of course, I told myself that quickly. Elias stood and placed the ring back into the velvet box. His hands were steady enough to be insulting. I said he was making a performance out of an object. He looked at me then, not at Dorian, not at Bianca, at me. He told the venue coordinator to cancel the reception before the first dance. At first, nobody understood. The coordinator, a thin woman with a tablet pressed to her chest, asked if he meant delay. Elias said no. He said cancel. He said the civil signing would not happen and the reception would not proceed. The first dance song had not started yet. It had been cued in the sound booth waiting for our names. The music stopped before it began. Servers froze with champagne trays near the kitchen doors. One glass tilted slightly on a tray and slid into another with a soft click. The photographer lowered the camera fully. Bianca whispered my name, but not the way she usually said it. No thrill, no content, just air. I told Elias he could not cancel my reception. He said there was no R left inside the room after what I had chosen to throw away. Samira helped Rana stand. Rana's lace handbag hung from her wrist. She did not look at me when she passed. Elias offered his arm, and she took it. He left the ballroom with Rana beside him. The dance floor remained empty under the lights I had spent months choosing. The venue coordinator's office was too small for a wedding dress. My skirt brushed the side of a filing cabinet, and one layer of tulle caught on the wheel of an office chair when I stepped inside. The room smelled of printer toner, panic, and the roses someone had carried in from the ballroom without knowing where else to put them. The thing is, I followed Elias because he had made a scene. That was the shape I needed the story to have. 2 closed doors. 1 clipboard. No reason he should get to ruin the room and then call himself calm. He stood near the coordinator's desk with the velvet ring box in his hand. Samira had taken Rana outside to wait with family. The coordinator kept looking at her tablet and then at us, as if cancellation might reverse itself if nobody used the wrong word. I told Elias he was embarrassing me. He said I had thrown his grandmother's life into the trash and called it junk. No raised voice. That made it harder to fight. A shouted sentence can be called emotion. His voice was a flat table with the object placed on it. I said I had thrown away a symbol of being undervalued. I said he had no idea what it was like to stand there in a dress, that cost more than some cars and be handed a ring that looked like an apology for not trying. He looked at the box. He said this was not one moment. Then he named the pattern: the bridal expo jokes, Bianca's messages, Dorian's diamond photos, the way I kept using the phrase photo balance. The private texts he had not read but had seen light up my screen at midnight. Every time I called the ring sweet with the same voice I used for sample shoes we sold at discount. Each item arrived quietly. That was worse than a list shouted in anger. It sounded organized because pain had been organizing itself without me. I said he let his family decide what counted as love and expected me to smile inside their tradition. The sentence was true. He could not fully deny it. His eyes moved to the ring box, then to the closed office door where Samira's footsteps had faded. His family had expected the ring to matter. Rana had expected it. Samira had expected it. Elias had brought their expectation into my wedding day and called it honor. That part was real, and for one clean second it stood between us without bending. Then I used it badly. I said I would apologize to Rana if Elias admitted he had humiliated me with a cheap ring on my wedding day. Fake compromise. It sounded generous in my mouth because it contained the word apologize. Elias placed the velvet box on the desk. He said an apology with a price tag attached was not an apology. The coordinator lowered her eyes to the tablet. Even she understood that sentence, and she did not know us. Samira entered only to retrieve Rana's shawl from the back of a chair. She did not look at me directly. Her face was pale around the mouth, and one earring had come loose from her hair. She picked up the shawl and asked Elias if Rana was ready to go. He said yes. I said Samira should not act like I had attacked Rana. Samira stopped with her hand on the door. She said I had not attacked her with hands. Then she left. That consequence stayed in the room after her. It changed the air. The coordinator began speaking only to Elias. My phone kept lighting up in my clutch. Nora texted that she was leaving with Layla because the reception was over. Not because she was tired. Not because she needed to help someone. Because the reception was over. Nora, who had pinned my train 3 times that morning, now sent one sentence and a period. Bianca messaged that the clip looked bad out of context. Out of context. Those words gave me something to hold, but not enough. Ingrid came in after Samira left. My mother had removed her corsage, and the 2 pinholes in her jacket looked like tiny bites. She closed the office door behind her and looked first at Elias, then at me. She asked what I had said exactly. I told her everyone was exaggerating. I said I had said I deserved diamonds, not some old family object pushed on me like a charity piece. Ingrid's face changed. Not anger. Recognition. That was worse. She said I sounded like the men who once made women feel poor for needing things. I told her not to bring her past into my wedding. She looked at the velvet box on the desk. She said my past had entered the room before hers did. That produced another new silence. My mother, who had defended me through bad boyfriends, late rent, terrible haircuts, and every sharp version of myself, did not reach for me. She stood with her hands around her small evening bag and looked tired. The office phone rang once. The coordinator picked it up and told someone the reception was cancelled. She used the word cancelled clearly. Not delayed, not paused. Cancelled. My dress made a soft, dragging sound when I turned toward Elias. I said he was being theatrical. I said he had finally found a way to make his silence louder than me. He reached to his lapel and removed his boutonniere. White rose, small sprig of greenery, pin wrapped in white tape. He placed it beside the closed velvet ring box on the coordinator's desk. That was the silent decision marker. I did not understand it then. I told myself he was being dramatic with flowers because he had no argument strong enough to win. I told myself calm men loved props when words failed them. Elias told the coordinator to send the vendor cancellation notes to his email and mine. He did not ask me if that was okay. Then he picked up the velvet box. I said he could not just walk away from our wedding. He said there was no wedding to walk away from because the signing had not happened. Legal words, but not documents yet. Just a fact held like a knife by its handle. He left with the box. I walked back into the ballroom alone. The candles were still lit. Champagne glasses still waited near the bar. The cake stood untouched beneath soft lights, perfect and useless. The first dance lights moved slowly over the empty floor, washing the polished wood in pale gold. A DJ stood near the booth with one headphone pressed to his ear and no music to play. I looked at the dance floor and thought, of course, this was what Elias wanted everyone to remember. The hotel room looked brutal in morning light. My dress hung from the wardrobe door, heavy and unfinished, the hem grey where it had brushed the venue office floor. One false eyelash sat near the sink. The room smelled of hairspray, cold coffee, and flowers dying in a vase I had not ordered. The thing is, a wedding morning has a script. A cancelled wedding morning does not. 2 missed calls. 1 dress still hanging. No line ready for this version. The bridesmaid chat had gone quiet. Bianca had posted nothing since out of context. Nora had left the group sometime after midnight. Layla's name stayed in the member list, but her small profile circle no longer appeared under anything I sent. The clip had spread inside both families by breakfast. My hand, the ring, the trash bin, Elias kneeling in his suit. I watched the video once with the sound off. Without sound, my face looked worse. I sent it to Bianca and asked how to spin it. Bianca left it on red. That was all. One small mark under the message where fast loyalty used to be. I put the phone down on the bed and went to Ingrid's kitchen because the hotel room had too many mirrors. My mother made tea in a blue mug with a crack near the handle. Her kitchen smelled of toast and the lemon soap she bought in bulk because it reminded her of clean places we had never lived in for long. She moved slowly, not because she was old, but because she was choosing her words like dishes that could break. She said my fear of looking cheap had made me cruel. I told her that was easy to say now. I said nobody wanted to admit Elias had put me in an impossible position. I said his family treated Rana's ring like a commandment and expected me to smile inside their tradition. Ingrid did not answer fast. That silence fed me. I mistook it for victory. I said Elias let his family decide what counted as love and expected me to smile inside their tradition. There it was. The one correct accusation. Plain, specific, true. My mother stirred her tea, though she had not added sugar. She said yes, that part was true. Then she looked at me. She said being right about that did not put Rana's ring back in her hand. I stood and opened the cupboard for a glass I did not need. The shelves held old plates, 2 chipped bowls, and a sugar tin with a dent in the side. Poor objects. Surviving objects. Objects I had spent my adult life trying to outrun. Dorian messaged while I was still standing there. He said he was sorry things had become public and suggested I avoid tagging his brand for now. No warmth, no outrage on my behalf. Just distance wearing polished shoes. Of course, I told myself he was being professional. Then I checked his jewellery page. The expo photo of us beside the diamond case was gone. The expensive world had stepped back before I had even reached for it. Elias sent one message at 11:16. It was short enough to hurt more than a paragraph. He said I could return the family's dignity by deleting the post Bianca had helped me draft the night before and giving Rana one direct apology with no audience. Final and clean. One offer. Not repeated. What he meant was that there was still one thing I could do that was not performance. What I heard was that he wanted me to crawl quietly back into a family that had already made me the cheap woman in the story. I typed 3 replies and deleted them. Then I opened my story camera. Controlled partial truth. That was my new tactic. A clean frame. Soft light from Ingrid's kitchen window. My face pale but composed. I wrote that no woman should be forced to accept sentimental scraps on the day she was supposed to feel chosen. I said standards were not greed. I said women were allowed to reject symbols that made them feel small. I posted it. The first replies came fast. Strangers understood faster than family because strangers only needed the angle I gave them. Then Samira saw it. I knew because she did not message me. She sent the story to Elias, and Elias sent me one screenshot. No comment. Just the screenshot with the timestamp visible. That was the quietest sentence he had ever sent. Rana saw it too. Layla told Nora, and Nora told Ingrid, and Ingrid placed her tea in the sink so carefully that the cup did not make a sound. My mother asked if I had thought about what Rana would see. I said Rana had a whole family protecting her, and I had no one protecting me. Ingrid turned from the sink. She said I had Bianca until Bianca chose not to stand under what she helped light. She said I had Dorian until his brand got nervous. She said I had Elias until I made him pick his grandmother's dignity off rubbish with a napkin. I told her she was enjoying this because it made her feel morally older than me. Her hand tightened on the edge of the sink. That was the line that moved her from hurt to distance. She did not throw me out. She did not shout. She only told me she needed to sit down and that I should go back to the hotel for my things. Before leaving, I crossed the last line. I posted a second story. This one said a man who used his grandmother to shame a bride into accepting less was not romantic. It was control with a family accent. I knew it was ugly while typing it. I posted it because the wound was exposed by then. My mother in the pawn shop. The man behind the counter weighing her ring. My mother's face when she told me cheap rings were how women learned what they were worth to men. I had spent years selling bridal value because I could not bear the sound of that scale. Of course, I called it standards. Dorian removed the last tagged photo of me from his page before the hour ended. Bianca still did not reply. The bridesmaid chat stayed silent. I checked Bianca's chat again, Dorian's page again, the bridesmaid chat again. Each room I had built inside my phone had gone quiet. No flames, no strategy. No one telling me I had played it right. That evening, I returned to the venue to collect the gifts from my side. The ballroom had been reset for another event. No roses, no first dance lights. The trash bin near the floral arch was gone. A young assistant handed me a plastic crate with my name taped to it. She did not meet my eyes. Inside were unopened cards, ribboned boxes, and one printed schedule from the day before. The first dance was still listed at 7:45. I folded the schedule once and put it in my bag. 2 posts, 1 empty ballroom, no music. Their silence was more frightening than any speech. The civil registrar's office waiting area smelled of copier paper and wet wool coats. I arrived in a cream coat because cream still said composed if you kept it clean. Elias was already there with Samira beside him, not Rana. Samira held a folder on her lap and looked at the wall clock instead of at me. The registrar clerk called both our names and led us to a small desk behind a glass partition. She confirmed that the marriage license had never been signed because the civil signing was cancelled before the first dance. Then she placed a formal withdrawal from scheduled civil marriage registration on the desk, already submitted by Elias. I picked up the folder too tightly and bent one corner. Attached behind it was the venue coordinator's incident report. The words were plain. Bride discarded groom's family heirloom ring into trash receptacle near floral arch. Reception cancelled prior to first dance. Civil signing not completed. A separate vendor cost claim listed flowers, catering, music, photography, and unused bar service. Numbers in neat columns. No emotion. Just the price of a room that had been prepared and then emptied. The clerk said the marriage was not legally registered and both parties would receive copies. Simply true. No cruelty in it. No rescue either. Elias did not correct my bent folder. He said he was not taking revenge. He said he was refusing to begin a marriage where his family's love had to survive my contempt. Then he stood first. Samira stood after him. She held the door for Elias, not for me. Dorian sent one polished message before I reached the street, saying his brand could not be associated with family controversy, and then the last photo of me vanished from his page. I moved back into my old apartment with unopened wedding gifts stacked beside the radiator. The vendor cost claim took the honeymoon savings and left a payment schedule in my inbox. Nora stopped replying, Bianca avoided me, and Ingrid answered only after the phone rang too long. Dorian's assistant sent a formal note asking me not to reference his jewellery in public posts. At the atelier, my manager moved me away from front-facing luxury consultations and gave me inventory work in the back room. The thing is, I thought diamonds would prove I had not become my mother in the pawn shop. Of course, I thought refusing the heirloom ring meant refusing a small life. But the ring was never the small thing. The small thing was what I became when I needed strangers to confirm my worth. The heirloom ring sat inside the old velvet box on the registrar's desk, cleaned but not returned to me. The first dance song stayed on the venue schedule, printed beside a time when nobody danced.